Today we're going to be talking homeschool budget. I want to share a couple of thoughts I have for you just on homeschool budgeting in general, and I'll share what I spent for our curriculum this year. Hi and welcome. Thanks for joining me. So, homeschool budget. I don't mean like I'm going to show you how to budget for your homeschool, but I did have a few thoughts on spending and the way people view it that I want to share with you. And then I will also be sharing with you what I spent for our curriculum for this homeschool year. So first off, I was even hesitant to make this video because I really didn't want this to become a judging or other people judging or other people feeling missing out, or it's just kind of a sensitive topic. Anytime you bring money up into it, it can be. And so I'm sharing what we do, but that doesn't mean it's what you have to do. And you do not need to see somebody else and feel like you're missing out when you were perfectly satisfied before. And everybody has different circumstances. Our budget is different from the next person's. I may not have as big a budget as some people, and I may have a bigger budget than others. So this is not in any way to make somebody feel envious of what I can afford, or of somebody to look and go, well, she's only spending that much, or she's spending that much. None of that. That's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is to share a few thoughts and then to show what I'm spending, because sometimes it's nice to have a reference of what other people are spending. It can just be helpful to kind of go, oh, okay, yeah. But it's in no way to make an envy or a judgment video happen. So please don't go down that road. That being said, my budget isn't super restricted. I feel very blessed in that my husband and I are both on the same board that homeschooling is one of the most important things we're doing for our children right now. We have a income that is comfortable, and so I don't have a budgeted amount of funds that I spend on our homeschool. My husband and I both agree that homeschooling is an investment that we find well worth putting the funds into when required. Now, that doesn't mean I'm all out just to spend money, although, I mean, we all like buying things. I try to shop used as much as possible. I buy PDF or copy PDF workbooks so that I can reuse the same workbook for each child and print my own pages, and I do that with a lot of my curriculum. I try to reuse curriculum per children, so all that being said, I'm not trying to spend a lot of money, but I feel blessed in that I don't feel like I have a tight budget for homeschool. If I see something that I want to do and feel like it is worth the money, then I can do it. So I'm blessed in that. I realize not everybody can. So again, this isn't to make people jealous. It's just to kind of share what my personal experience is. And if you can't afford it, then cut down, cut the edges, make it what you and your spouse have agreed upon or can afford. So it's more important that you know what you can afford than that you try to mimic me or anyone else out there. Also, cost does not necessarily equate quality. You can have something that's very expensive and doesn't work for you, and you can have something that's very cheap and works great. So don't look at homeschool items and go, well, it's more expensive, therefore it must work. However, there is some truth in some things that are higher quality make, or that are well proven and well tried and have been around for a long time, can cost a little more because they do work well and they have been proven. So it's not necessarily a guarantee that because it costs more, it's going to be worth or work better, but there is some truth in that sometimes it's worth investing in something good. I think it's really worth investing in my child's education. So if I think something good, even if it costs a little more, I would rather invest into their education than not. That being said, you have to work within your own budget. You can budget in places in order to spend in places. Again, it really depends on what you have. But you do what you think best. And if you really can't afford something, if you see something that everybody loves, looks amazing, and is too expensive, just move on. If you can't afford it, you can't. Don't live in the place of I wish I could, or I envy everybody else, or can, and then you spend the money and know you shouldn't have. Just accept the fact that that isn't for you and find next best. But if you can afford it, then invest in your child's education. So I feel like it really comes down to you knowing what you can and can't afford and accepting that and doing your best within that. So that being said, the stuff that I purchased for my oldest, I have 2 more children coming down the road. So anything that I purchased for my kindergartner, I planned, things change, but I plan to use for my next 2 children. That being said, the initial purchase is going to be what costs money. So my kindergartner's expenses is going to be way more than my kindergartner next year, because I'm going to be using all the same teacher's manual. Like I said, I buy PDFs, so I'll be just paying for the printing costs, which for like a 200-page workbook, printing costs with paper and ink with my printer is like $350. So I'm like, my expenses are so much less for the next children that if I took the initial expenses and then the expenses for each of my other children and estimated them out, it comes down to a much smaller number. So I'm also thinking in terms of like future. Now, things do change and I may not use exactly the same setup for my next child as I do for this one, but a lot of them will remain the same. At least I hope they will. So I am looking at it in terms of investment. I might spend a little bit more on my first child than I would on my last, just because I know I can use that item for 2 more children, where my last, it's really just that one use. So also keeping that in mind. Let me think if I have anything else in my notes that I wanted to mention. I've mentioned I purchase used when I can. I do purchase in advance to find deals. So I do like to find deals. I like to purchase used. I like to find and budget and not make this super expensive. I also try to sell my curriculum when I'm done with it, or my books or my resources. If I'm not using something or we purchase something that didn't work, I will totally resell it. So I'm trying to recoup some of those costs to keep our budget down a little bit. That being said, let me go ahead and I'll pop up on the screen our family subjects, my kindergartner, and my preschooler individually, and you kind of see what I'm spending. So family subjects, we have our history, and you'll see chapter books right under that. History is the actual curriculum we purchased, and chapter books are the read alouds that go with that history curriculum. The chapter books was a splurge for me. I could have gotten most of those at the library, but I found them used for, well, you see for the price, for about $4 or $5 a piece, and I wanted them. They're books I don't mind having in my homeschool library, so I splurged on those. Then our German was definitely the most expensive thing we purchased, but it's been great so far, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. I thought about buying it in PDF, which would have been about $50 less, I think, maybe more than that. And I decided not to. I decided to go for the physical copy, but I could have budgeted a little more tightly on that as well if we had to. Our Bible, I was given the curriculum we're using, so that's awesome. The calendar workbook was a really small purchase, and then our memory work is the classical conversation CDs, which I purchased a while ago, and those may not have been the best purchase. I plan to use pieces of them, but not the whole thing. Now that I have I bought them like a year or two ago when I was getting ready to start homeschooling, and I think now that I have a clearer idea of what we want to do, I probably wouldn't have purchased those, but I have them on hand and I plan to use bits and pieces of them. So those are our family subjects, and that cost totals up to $259.56, and that's split between both my preschooler and my kindergartner. Then we have my kindergartner's individual subjects. You see I have math and logic kind of lumped into one. 6138, there's a couple different workbooks. I have their language arts, which for her, she's finished her reading program, so the expense of her reading program isn't in there. Otherwise, that would be a little more spendy if she hadn't already finished. But we're really just doing some explode the code, some spelling, some grammar, handwriting, so small. And I got a lot of that used, a lot of the manuals and stuff, so $35.83 for that. And then her geography workbook, so totaling $107. So that's not bad, actually, for her. I feel like that was great. I thought it was going to be more, but it didn't end up being more. So then my preschooler, you can see, is definitely the lowest. And partly it's because she's in preschool, but that's also partly because all of her teacher's manuals, a lot of her workbooks are already owned as PDFs. So I'm just paying for the printing cost. So yeah, she will be significantly less when we go into kindergarten as well. So her math is only 15. She's using the same math program as her older sister, but I already have the teacher's manual. I'm just printing out the student manual and some resources and for logic. And then her logic is the same. I have the PDF from her older sibling, and so it doesn't cost me anything for her logic book because I'm just printing it out, or it just cost me the $350, sorry, for the printing costs. And then phonics for her, which we're doing some get ready, set, and go for the code books, which I did have to purchase this year because I didn't use those with her older sister. So hers really totals out to be about $33. So not bad. And I think altogether, this is roughly around $400 for the family subjects, preschool, and kindergarten. So sometimes I look at that number and I go, $400 is a lot for preschool and kindergarten. And then sometimes I look at that number and go, $400 is not a lot for 2 children for school. And it is all in your perspective. I am blessed to be able to afford what I think is good material and get what I want. But if I had to budget, I could budget a little more tightly. And what I think is necessary is not what everybody thinks is necessary. And some of the things I have in there are obviously not necessary. We do not have to do German or calendar. I could totally do those differently. I did not have to buy the chapter books. I could have got them at the library. So there are things that could obviously be cut if we were on a tighter budget. But sometimes it's helpful to know what other people are spending, not because, like I said, not to make it a judgment or an envy thing, but just to kind of know, am I even within the loop of, like, it's just helpful. I feel like homeschooling when you're starting can be such a big unknown, and there's such varying prices buying new material or used material, and then you start second guessing yourself. So for me, I've watched some other people's budgeting videos, and it was helpful for me to just get an idea of what everybody else is spending, just so I know if I'm like nuts out of the ballpark or not. But again, I think it's more important than following the crowd or doing what I'm doing is sit down and see what you can afford. And within what you can afford, invest. Do the best you can with what you can. But if you can't, like I said, don't sit wishing or envying or feeling like you're not doing what you should. Just move on. There are so many good resources out there that are really affordable, free, and you can do amazing with what you have. But again, if you can, then make this an investment both of your time and your money, and enjoy the process. So that's all I'm going to say. Hopefully this is helpful for you. I'll be making some more videos this upcoming week, and I look forward to sharing those with you.